Ever since the early 2010s, Boi-1da has cemented himself as one of the top producers in the industry by working closely with the biggest rapper in the game, Drake, as well as stacking credits with huge artists like Travis Scott, Lil Wayne, Rihanna, Eminem, J. Cole, and pretty much everyone in the rap game. And unlike many producers who have a few big years and then fall off, Boi-1da has maintained his status as a super producer for over a decade. So today, we're gonna go in depth and break down what it is about Boi-1da's iconic sound that keeps huge rappers like Drake, Eminem, and Travis Scott coming back time and time again. In my eyes, artists keep coming back to Boi-1da because he pumps out catchy but super simple beats. They catch your ear, but they leave a ton of room for the artist to be the spotlight and the star of the show, which is a lesson that he learned early on from Drake.
The biggest thing I learned working with Drake was just simplicity. I used to put a lot of extra sauce on all my beats, and there's one thing he used to always do is just, he'd be like, yo, I like this beat. And then I see him go in and like just eliminate sounds. Like,
a lot of people talk down on super simple beats and, you know, say stuff like, oh, anyone could have made this. It's just a two-step hi-hat. But in reality, making attention-grabbing music that is super simple is a very hard thing to do. Anyways, there's a few key elements that I've found in a lot of Boi-1da's production. The first one being attention-grabbing melodies that are super repetitive and super catchy. Second being hard kicks with either no 808 or a very weak 808, but we'll go more into this whenever we talk about the drums. And speaking of the drums, the third thing is dumb, simple drums. He's really not doing too much with the drums, but with the minimal sounds that he does have, he does interesting things with them to create unique bounces. And finally, the tempos vary a ton, but if you want that signature Boi-1da trap kind of sound, 130 BPM to about 165 BPM is the sweet spot from what I've found. So to get this first beat going, let's start with the melody. Like I just said, the melodies are super repetitive, with a good amount of his hardest beats only using one chord for the whole melody. So to get this Boi-1da vibe, we definitely want to do a repetitive MIDI pattern with just one minor chord to get that dark trap sound. But this can get a little boring and generic, so we're going to make a crazy soul sample for the intro later on in this video, as well as some switches in the melody, so stay tuned for that. But anyways, a great instrument to start off with is a piano, like you can hear on these songs.
I could never be nobody #1 fan. Your first number. Custom the things. Way up. Turn it all up.
So to start off our melody, I grabbed the Teletone Audio Golden Age Grand, which is a contact bank, and it sounds amazing for that vintage sampled sound. So once I had that VST loaded up, I put down this repetitive MIDI pattern. Although you might look at this MIDI and it looks like there's, you know, a decent amount of stuff going on, it's really just a few 4-note melodies just stacked on top of each other at the same time. So if we get rid of all of this, right, this is literally just 1-bar melody. Then after that, I just added this simple melody, playing in a little bit of a lower octave. And then we have another little 4-note melody, 2-bar melody, just repeating twice. And then finally, just these low bass piano notes, and we combine all of that together. But at its core, it's really just a bunch of 2, 3, 4-note melodies repeating over and over. All right, so once I had the main piano down, I used a technique that you can hear Boi-1da using on the melody on Eminem's Lucky You. If you take a listen, you can hear that the main top line of the bell melody plays out normally, but then he layers in the half-sped version of that in with it to make it feel more full and give it more depth. Doing this is a super good way to fill out your loop without having to add a whole new sound to the melody. So I did the same thing and half sped the piano that we just made and layered it in with the original piano to get this. Next up, I wanted to take some inspiration from one of my favorite melodies that Boi-1da has flipped, the Frank Duke sample on 0 to 100, specifically that dark guitar that comes in right on the 1.
Fuck being on some chill shit. We go 0 to 100.
I would never think of this loop as a guitar loop, but more just a loop that has a guitar in it. And even though it's just a tiny little guitar top line, it adds so much character to the track. So to replicate that, I grabbed a live guitar starter from my Melody Mastery kit that sounds like this raw. And this sounds cool, but it's definitely too busy for the sample that we've already got going on. So to make it sound more simple, I half sped it and chopped it. And to get more of that 0 to 100 tone that the guitar has, I ran it through some guitar amp effects inside of Logic. And then you get this guitar layer, which is really just kind of adding a little bit of texture. There's not too much melody in it, but it sounds cool in the finished sample. At this point, the main ideas of the melody are done, and we don't want to overcomplicate it, but I wanted to sauce it up just a bit more. So I took some more inspiration from sample makers like Q-Beats and Frank Dukes, who have countless hits with Boi-1da. First thing being a vinyl texture that I added, similar to the vinyl that you can hear on the Q-Beats sample on Drake's Hype. Once I added the vinyl noise, I just copied that same MIDI that I had on the pianos and put it onto 2 synth presets. And since people like Frank Dukes use real analog synths in their samples, I really wanted to get that kind of texture from the synths. And a little sauce for y'all, Des Wright's brand new plugin Freak 2 is super good for getting that analog kind of tone inside the box without having any of these real synths. So after adding 2 presets from Des Wright's plugin and a vinyl noise, you get this. And then finally, to get that Q-Beats Frank Dukes kind of sound, there's a key plugin that I put on my master, H910 Harmonizer. Big shout out to Mario Luciano for putting me onto this, but take a listen to how big of a difference this plugin makes. At its core, I'm using it to just pitch shift the sample, but it does more than just pitch shifting it. It adds this weird detuned kind of vibe that I just haven't heard any other plugin come close to. And now the sample is finished. But one thing that Boi-1da does all the time with melodies in his beats is resample them. And don't worry, I'll get into those hard-hitting Boi-1da drums as well as a soul sample switch up later in the video. But for now, let's finish off this main melody for the trap section. Anyways, you can hear this chopped, resampled melody sound being used super heavily in that 2015 to 2017 Drake and Boi-1da era.
Way up. Turn it all up. Yeah.
Essentially, Boi-1da chops up his melodies like they're actual samples instead of just using them as loops, or at least he does in those records. So to do this, I started a new project file so that mentally I could just look at it as a sample instead of just a bunch of MIDI files, and then put it in a sampler and chopped it every 1/2 bar. And then I started messing around with my MIDI keyboard to come up with some chops until I made this pattern. You really want to keep the pattern of the chops pretty simple and repetitive because, like I've mentioned multiple times, that's super key to getting that Boi-1da kind of sound with the melody. For example, Boi-1da literally chopped out 1 chord of an entire 3.5 minute sample by Frank Dukes to make 0 to 100.
Fuck being on some chill shit. We go 0 to 100.
Anyways, after I had that resampled part of the melody done, I wanted to add a B section. Something more than just pitching it up and down for a verse or a hook. And if you take a listen to these 2 records, you can hear how the main section of the melody sounds completely different than the B section.
I could never be nobody #1 fan. Yeah. Pip squeak, pipe down. You ain't in no big 3.
These aren't really huge beat switches or anything too dramatic, but adding subtle changes in the melody like this really help to make the energy of the song feel like it's progressing and it's not just the same thing looped the whole entire song. So the first thing I did to make the second section of this melody is mess with half speed, as well as using my upcoming Producer Pedals plugin to do some reverse chopping on the melody. And when you combine the half sped layer with some high pitched reverse chopping, you get this. Next up, if you listen to Free Smoke, you can hear this simple little descending bell melody.
Place, trying to figure out the whole thing. I saw people doing things, almost get.
So I pulled up Xenology, which is super good for these little cheap synthy bell kind of sounds. And I also grabbed this tripped out preset from my Melody Mastery Analog Lab bank and put down this super simple pattern. Another key instrument to Boi-1da's sound are dark, deep synth basses, just like the one that you can hear on Big Sean's Blessings.
Fuck a vacay, I feel better at work. I mean, whatever is.
So I went back into the Melody Mastery Analog Lab Bank and added a synth bass to this section with the bells. Now, even though we have a few different sections of this melody to use in the beat, it's still a little bit generic at its core. And one thing I've found in Boi-1da songs like Free Smoke is that you can take a pretty simple and boring trap melody and kind of give it the illusion that it's at a different level than it really is just by setting it up a different way. Take a listen to Free Smoke and how crazy that sample on the intro is, and how the contrast between that emotional, soulful sample and the hard trap beat work super well together.
Is it the strength?
That sample sets up the drop for that song so well, so I wanted to do something similar for our beat. And instead of digging for a sample online, I went into my Melody Mastery kit and grabbed this insane live piano starter that I made with a session musician. And then I took some vocals that I had worked on a few weeks back with one of my favorite vocalists to work with, Shantae Marie. Which, fun fact, her vocals were actually sampled on a Boi-1da record with Drake and Camila Cabello, which you can hear right here.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say that she's got that Boi-1da sound down. Anyways, I also added in a live drum perk loop from the Melody Mastery kit just to give it that sampled texture. And when you put the drum break, live piano, and Shantae's vocals together, you get this.
It was the right place, wrong timing. Hoping I'll see you again. Hoping I'll see you again. Oh, it was the right place, wrong timing. Hoping I'll see you. Hoping I'll see you again.
Once I had that main idea down for the sampled intro, I wanted to make a few parts of Shantae's vocals shine just a little bit more. So I actually layered my own vocals in, just following her vocal melody, doing some backing vocals, and you get this.
It's the right place, wrong timing.
After that, I improvised a pretty busy bass line that's really more of like a melody than it is a normal bass line. And I used the Scarby Rickenbacker bass for that, which sounds amazing. Then I went back into Des Wright's Freak 2 plugin to add some synth accents, and I also played a little something on my Moog Matriarch. And then finally, I ran the entire melody through my 1970s tape machine to give it that real, authentic, sampled kind of texture.
It was the right place, wrong timing. Hoping I'll see you again. Hoping I'll see you again. Oh, it was the right place, wrong timing. Hoping I'll see you. Hoping I'll see you again.
At this point, the melody is 100% done, both that sampled intro and the main section for our beat. So now it's time to get into the core part of Boi-1da's sound, the drums.
Skin smooth, I'm healthy. I'm in a mix and I'm handshaking, but most of y'all. If I hit it one time, I'm a piper. If I hit it 2 times, then I like a bitch. All summer 16. All summer 16.
Boi-1da's drums always hit perfect, and in order to get perfectly hitting drums, you need the best sounds possible. Luckily for you, I just dropped the free version of my drum mastery kit that has the best drum sounds for a ton of different vibes. If you want the 100% free drum mastery demo with a ton of free sounds, perk loops, etc. for all different genres like R&B, trap, soul, pop, reggaeton, Afro beats, and a bunch of weird experimental stuff, click the first link in the description to grab that. I'm going to be using sounds from Drum Mastery to do the drums in the beat in this video. So if you like how those sound, go test them out for free. Just make sure you hit that first link in the description. Boi-1da's drums always hit perfectly. And over the past few days, listening through his discography again, there's a few key things that I've noticed in his drums. The first one being trappy sound selection, even when he's doing more R&B leaning songs. Secondly, his drums are simple. I mean, that's like the first thing I think of when I think of Boi-1da drums is just simplicity. Third, you don't want to add too many perk sounds. I feel like the kick, snare, and hi-hat are really the driving force for these drums. And finally, in a lot of his beats, he has one sound that's just a little bit off. So with all that in mind, let's start building out the drums. And to everyone who's been watching me for a minute, I've officially moved to FL Studio over Logic, just specifically for drums. After being in a bunch of studio sessions where everyone is using FL, I felt like I just had to hop on the bandwagon so I can collab easier when I'm in person with people. And as someone who's used Logic for almost 10 years, I gotta admit that the drums just sound better on FL Studio. But anyways, the first thing that I wanted to do is start off with a simple two-step hi-hat pattern, which is heard in so many of Boi-1da's hits. So I put down a super simple two-step hi-hat pattern with the velocity kind of going up and down just to give it a little bit more of that human kind of bounce, which is by no means secret sauce at this point, but it is kind of essential for the bounce of these Boi-1da beats. Anyways, I also put two little subtle hi-hat rolls at the very end of the pattern, and you get this. Next up, the snare. And one thing that comes to mind when I think about Boi-1da's sound selection are the super ear-grabbing snares that he uses. And I specifically love whenever he uses these rim shot sounding snares like the one that you can hear on Summer 16.
All summer 16. All summer 16.
So I grabbed this GG snare from my upcoming Drum Mastery kit, which by the way, Drum Mastery is insane. It's gonna be the drum kit to end all drum kits. Anyways, with that snare and the hi-hat, you get this. Next up, we get to an essential sound to Boi-1da's drums, the kick. The way that Boi-1da uses a kick is a little bit different than most producers. He has a ton of beats where the kick does this unorthodox kind of pattern, with one of the best examples I could think of being the crazy kick pattern on Mob Ties.
Get rid of these niggas. Sick of this shit.
Funny enough, that crazy kick pattern was actually an accident, as you can see in this video.
Where the kicks were like stuttered. It was actually a mistake. I had walked across the keyboard, which was plugged into the MIDI, and my elbow like ran across it by accident, and it made like, it was like the perfect timing. It literally went like, brrr, and it sounded like my kick drum fell down the stairs or something.
And there's also a few other Boi-1da songs where the kick doesn't come in on the one, and I see that being kind of a signature thing that he does in his beats. He often uses those off or delayed kicks that don't come in right when you expect them to come in, and it gives the beat a super unique bounce.
Diplomatic community, fuck him. Hey, Kendrick just opened his mouth. Someone go hand him a Grammy right now. Like, bow, bow, bow. TSA just opened my...
So like I had mentioned earlier, these records are a super good example of where the drums are pretty simple, but there's just one sound that's a little off that just gives it a unique kind of sound. And doing little details like that gives the artist something that they don't always get from every other producer. So in our beat, I wanted to add little moments where the kick doesn't come in where you expect it. And I also wanted to add some kick rolls like you can hear in Mob Ties. So to do this tastefully, I wanted to create different patterns in the playlist in FL where I have different parts of the drum. So anyways, let me hop in the computer and show you guys how I worked on the kick pattern. All right, so for this first kick pattern, you can see that the kick is playing a pretty normal pattern. It's always coming in on the one and it's not doing anything too crazy, but this is what it sounds like. And by the way, doing these little double kick hits is a super good way to get that Boi-1da kind of bounce to your kicks. But anyway, so that was like the main pattern, the main like normal pattern of the kicks. But then when we move over to this next pattern right here, pattern 1, you can see that the first time it comes in, it still comes in on the 1, but right here, I have it come in an 8th bar delayed. And I also have these little mob tie type of kick rolls at the end. Now, taking that off sound one step further, I took some inspiration from Boi-1da's drums on Pound Cake. Take a listen to how the first snare is deleted and how it gives it a crazy bounce. So to get a similar kind of effect in our beat, instead of just straight up copying that same rhythm, I had the idea that I could do this long hi-hat roll and get rid of the kick on the one and delete that first snare like pound cake. And doing this gave the drums a super cool like little break that just feels different than the rest of the beat. Once I had all that, I grabbed 2 open hats and had one just layer on the one to just kind of add some impact, and the second open hat playing this little catchy pattern at the end of each 4 bars. One note, by the way, on open hats, for that Boi-1da Toronto kind of sound, I often find that using short open hat samples that are kind of low in pitch works super well. Anyways, to finish off the beat, it's time to get into the 808, or maybe the lack of an 808. In a lot of Boi-1da's beats, you can hear that there's either a very weak 808 that's kind of subtle and it lets the kick be on top, or there's not even an 808 at all, just some sort of bass.
You know how that shit go. You know how that shit black or the white girls. It ain't safe, it ain't safe, it ain't safe. All up on TV, I thought it made me richer. Wasn't paying me enough, I needed something.
As you can hear in those records, Boi-1da likes to let the 808 take the back seat, or just not even use one in the first place. So to get that Boi-1da sound, you want to stay away from super punchy 808s like a Spins 808. And if you're going to use an 808, you want to make sure it's a more subby one with no attack that lets the kick sit on top and have a lot of room. So with all that in mind, I still wanted to add some more low end to this beat. So I grabbed this super subby sound from my drum mastery kit. And then I put down an 808 pattern that's purposefully playing off the kick with little silences here and there that add a bunch of bounce to the beat. All right, so if we look at the kick pattern right here, you can see the 808 ghost notes right here below it. Right when this kick comes in, I purposely cut off the 808, leave a little bit of silence. This 808 comes in, then I have a little bit of silence right before this next kick hit, and doing this just makes the kick hit harder because there's not a constant bass line going beneath it. And it feels like the kick almost starts and stops when the 808 comes in. And then right here, you can see that I've got this big silence where there's one kick hit that the 808 doesn't hit with, just to add some variety. And then on this kick roll right here, you can see if we go into the 808 that I purposefully did not have the 808 playing out long like this because it felt like it accented the kick roll a little bit better and sounded a little bit less muddy when it just played short little notes like that with that kick roll that you see up there. So now let's play that through. Finally, for one last touch to these drums, I wanted to add that classic Boi-1da and Drake rim shot bounce that you can hear on Boi-1da's drums on the bridge section of Do Not Disturb. So I went back into drum mastery and grabbed this more gentle rim shot and put down that classic Drake Boi-1da pattern. And now the drums are completely finished. So the last thing I had to do was figure out how to transition this soulful intro into this hard trap beat. And one thing that came to mind as I was listening to If You're Reading This, It's Too Late was adding some sort of vocal chop right before the drop, like the ones you can hear on Know Yourself.
Wallet.
So I just went on Splice and looked up Jamaican vocal, and I found this super cool chant. And that vocal worked super well to kind of prepare the listener that a switch up was coming. But finally, I took some inspiration from Boi-1da's production on Travis Scott's Mafia, where you can hear that he does this little 4-count intro to the beat. So I did something similar by chopping the melody 4 times before the full drums came in on the beat. And once I had that, the beat was 100% done. But before I play this beat through, if you've enjoyed this video so far, hit that subscribe button so you get more of these videos recommended to you. But anyways, let's hear the beat through.
It was the right place, wrong timing. Hoping I'll see you again. Hoping I'll see you again. Oh, it was the right place, wrong timing. Hoping I'll see you. Hoping I'll see you again.
Yes.
Quick reminder, if you want a ton of free drum sounds, click the first link in the description for the free drum mastery demo kit. The full kit is going to be out August 22nd, so stay on the lookout for that. We're going to be doing discounted copies, bonuses, and all of that. But if you want to grab some free drum sounds, doesn't hurt to click that first link in the description and get some free gems. That's all I got for you guys today. Peace.